Hello, ladies and gentlemen, the people on YouTube. I might have to run and open the door because I've been waiting for food now for about 2 hours, but it hasn't arrived. Before you ask, Yamato, what happened to your beard? Well, I woke up this morning preparing for the analyst desk. I thought, wow, I need to trim my beard. I managed to mess up my beard because I screwed up. I put the setting on 2 millimeters and then I started and I was like, damn, I messed up. And I tried to save it and it just looked weirder and weirder. And then I just was in a position where I needed to commit. That's what happened. No need to comment on the lack of beard. It'll be back, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay? We continue with Genji versus G2. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to give you a moment to, close this video and then move on to the next one because you're going to get spoiled because we are going to summarize it. As always, you can catch it on Spotify, Amazon Music, and other stuff. The Voice of Yamato is the name of the game with the beautiful album cover made by their friend Atan. Is that how you pronounce it? It's one of those names that you've read many times, but you've never said it out loud because it's just known through the internet. So, Atan. Let's just call you Atan. Anyhow, Genji vs G2 was a very interesting series because G2 smashed. The big question marks about G2 was how much can they learn in a span of a week? And it turns out, with the experience that they have, 1 week is a lot for them, especially preparing against a team like Genji. Because Genji, of course, is something that I'm just trying to smack a fly away. Genji is, of course, a team that is predictable. With time, they begin to show their patterns. And this is the perfect type of team for Genji to play up against. But G2 had question marks in Yanko's performance. I don't know if you can say it was directly Yanko's performance. It was just G2's identity revolving around junglers that require a lot of cooperation and patience from teammates. It didn't really work. Yeah, I don't want to pinpoint that on Yanko's alone because it's not a question of him being able to play these champions mechanically. Like playing mechanically Nidalee or whatever, it's something that you can figure out. Jankos is the level of player that can figure it out. It's just that when it comes down to it, G2 is very used to having a jungler that can just back him up because they play very loose and heavy in the lane phase. Yeah? So keep this in mind as we're talking about the jungle. Next thing in line, Perks. He's been a bit back and forth in his performance in the group stage and also, of course, in the summer. And, looking back at it, my opinion of Perks wasn't the greatest because of his performance against Fnatic. But Fnatic's bot lane are just insane. So that should just be okay, Fnatic's bot lane is just insane. I think looking at the other pieces of G2, Mickey and of course Caps and in the end Wunder, I think they performed as expected. Absolutely nuts. Very, very good. And they continued in the same fashion when it came to this best of 5. Genji, I felt like they have had an identity crisis. They lost their precision in the group stage, and I thought they would bounce back because I thought on paper their players look fantastic. Very, very good. I think Klid had a okay showing in groups. I think BDD could be better. I think Ruler finally is healthy coming into this quarters. But it all came down to how much these teams can grow. The bottom line as to why I didn't choose to go with Genji as a prediction, because I predicted G2. I predicted G2 to win, was because of the experience in best of 5s and just G2. I think in top 8, they were the most experienced team at the World Championship across all members. And that's huge. I think the amount of games they played at Worlds, and considering, I believe, this is the only roster, G2 is the only roster that didn't make changes from last year. And that's a big deal. Damwon replaced Nuclear. DRX wasn't there. That was Griffin, right, last year. And then, of course, Top Esports wasn't there. And they also made changes. Karsa, Jakilov joined the fray. And then, of course, we look at Suning, rookies, Rookie City. And then we have, JDG. They brought in Kanavi, after the whole Griffin drama, you remember? They tried to lock in Kanavi in the team, and then Kanavi got to go, and so forth. There was a lot of drama with the Griffin thing. I don't want to get into it because I don't know the details. Honestly, I don't care. It is what it is. I'm here to watch games and watch gameplay, and that's what G2 gave us today. Coming into the first game, I was very surprised by the preparation here. The Ornn permaban. That was a mystery. Because if I'm Genji, what I'm looking for is make top lane as boring as a matchup as possible and put yourself in a situation where you can play mid into bottom. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. First pick Lilia. I think Lilia is an iffy one because when other junglers are in the picture, like Nidalee, I think it's easy to design a composition that is good into Lilia. That is the problem. I don't think Nidalee necessarily counts Lilia because I think Lilia is slightly stronger early and the move speed is very good against a champion that requires spears to be useful. The problem is just all the champions that you pick together with Nidalee are going to be good into Lilia. You think Alistar, you think Pantheon, you think Twisted Fate, Camille even, Jhin with additional CC. These are things that are tricky for Lilia to deal with. So I'm not a fan of the Lilia first pick, especially in this particular scenario. The key thing is the Ornn Renekton ban. The key advantage Wunder has here is the fact that he plays Shen. I think the Ornn ban comes out because they feel like they don't want to pick Ornn. They don't want to give away Ornn. If they pick Ornn, they get Shen'd, and then all of a sudden, a lot of the pressure that they want to create into the bottom side is going to be nullified, because I do believe that Wunder is better than Rasko, and he showcased that too. Rasko was one of the better performers on Genji. I think probably he was the second best player right after Ruler. I think everyone else on the team probably didn't have the greatest performance. It was looking quite rough for Genji. Continuation, Lilia first pick, and then Camille Nidalee. The fact that you don't take Twisted Fate here together with Volibear Lilia is a big mistake because you know it's coming. And on top of that, the enemy is going to be able to ban 4 or 5 mid laners that are going to be good into Twisted Fate. So that's going to put itself in a situation where you're going to run into a lot of problems already from the 3 first champions. This is the Damon's holy draft. And from the get-go, the first 3 champions guarantee a very, very top-side-centric game, but at the same time, there is options to transfer that pressure into bottom side with ease with the Twisted Fate. Kalista is something that is perma against Ruler, and this was kind of a little bit of a question mark. They're challenging Ruler here. He's picking the Kalista. Let's see what happens next. We had the Jhin, which was beautiful. Perks played super, super well on Jhin this series. He played 3 games of Jhin. Jhin's win ratio is absurd in quarterfinals because Huang Feng and, of course, Perks played it. I think 7-1 is the win ratio of this champion. I think the one loss was Reckless that picked it in game 3 against Top Esports. Of course, the matchups matter, and we can't read into win ratios too much. Still, it is what it is. Exodia draft for G2, Genji follow up with a Taric and an Azir. So this is one of the issues, right? Like you are playing Lilia jungle, and you have Azir in the mid lane. The 2v2 is not great already, and then Taric, and there's too many reasons here to get some magic resistance, some Mercuries, and then all of a sudden a lot of the damage is going to be nullified. Playing Kalista against this team composition is not easy either. You're very cleanse reliant. Twisted Fate can always card the Kalista because the nature of her auto attack range. Sure, Genji have a decent teamfight composition here because they have strong ultimates, and in this game, Genji did in fact get ahead. Kalista Taric were doing well on the bottom side, and Volibear, there was a 2v2 on top side that ended up good for them. Volibear had no flash. I think if Volibear played it better, he could have started the game 2-0 for his team. It was just the timing of his E that was a little bit off. Wunder took a horrible trade into the Volibear, and it looked kind of bad here for G2 in the start. But then G2 was activated. Genji didn't know how to manage their side lanes, and the Twisted Fate was picking off Clid one after another. And Genji was at a point where they had Soul Point on the table with a minor gold lead, and that was so important. Soul Point with a composition that is so good in team fights. And then what happened was both the Taric and the Lilia were in a journey looking for mushrooms in the wild forest of the topside jungle when they weren't supposed to do so. They got caught, and then Azir tried to follow up to look for the fight. Lilia died, Taric died, Azir died, and all of a sudden that meant Nashor and a gold advantage for G2, which led into the Infernal Drake being not a problem. And of course, G2's composition with Nashor is very tough to deal with. very tough to deal with. They can be everywhere at once. It's a global composition, and they can split the enemy up. This is where Genji lose. Taric in split situations, very bad. Kalista in split situations, very bad. Azir in split situations, very bad. And the same thing for Lilia. What is the ideal situation for Lilia? She gets to Q a lot of people and sleep a lot of people. She has a lot of sustained damage that she can spread to a lot of people, but in isolated 2v2s or 3v3s, she's not going to have the same amount of value. So Genji's team composition was broken up, and the G2 slaughter continued. So this was a massive bounce back for G2. They got ahead. I mean, they fell behind, and from a Drake deficit, they managed to come back off of catching the enemy team. This was a big red flag already for Genji in the series. Genji needed to recognize that the side lane game is not their game in this best of 5. They need to deny the picks that allow that, or create a situation where that is the name of the game. Beautiful Jhin performance, very, very solid. Had a rough time in lane. Pantheon Jhin were losing against the Taric and the Kalista, but it just didn't matter. Twisted Fate eventually came down there, got a kill on the Kalista. Jhin was in decent condition, and that was it. There was no pressure. They beat Kalista like Ruler's Kalista, which is a very big deal. This champion, I think, got banned like 30 times in regular season, and it got banned 6 games in the group stage for a good reason. Ruler's Kalista is monstrous, and there's no shame falling 15-20 CS behind, because, of course, Kalista doesn't scale so well due to the nature of the items that she purchases and just the nature of the champion. Anyhow, that was game number 1. We continue to game number 2. So this is where things started to become more grim for Genji, because as I mentioned before, side lane game is not their game, and I wanted Genji to play a game where it's mid into bottom. But here, first 3, I thought Genji was winning. Camille, Nidalee, Twisted Fate. Shen is a good adaptation into this because it's based on Twisted Fate. It's a champion that is good into Twisted Fate Camille. Shen is good here. And then the Sylas into the Twisted Fate, a classic matchup we've seen many times in the LCK. And of course, Caps is one of the best Sylases in the world. So this is, good response for G2, but the issue for G2 is, of course, that they are very magic damage heavy. Mercury in the top side on Nidalee, Twisted Fate, Camille, and then I think all of a sudden they're going to be very winning. Of course, Shen can itemize Titanic Hydra and so forth to get more physical damage, but the CC portion is what is important. They're going to be very slippery as champions with the Camille, with the move speed, and Nidalee the same way, and Mercury is going to do wonders. So I think top side, room to outplay, but I think Genji just have a slightly better quality of champions due to the itemization. Kalista, Senna gets banned, Jhin gets 4th picked, and the biggest issue here is just Genji needed to round off the composition with champions that didn't allow the enemy to pick Tam. So Ashe, Leona, the lock-in here just gives Tam absurd amount of value. Like Tam is perfect into Camille, good into Twisted Fate already. It's very durable in bottom side. And you think of the options that Twisted Fate has here in terms of what he wants to play into. He needs to go for a Tahm Kench lane or a Shen lane. It's very difficult to create dive situation without a lot of due process. It's going to take a lot of effort and pain in order to reach that point in time. And that was the biggest issue. Ashe, Leona, while it is a strong lane, Tahm Kench is going to be very valuable here, and Cleanse value just goes through the roof. What happened in this one? Jankos was very, very active in the early game. He was barely farming with the Lilia. Was a very, very good performance because he is willing. Jankos is one of the few junglers that would be able to take such a decision. He knows when to farm and not to farm, which I think is a very, very good sign. And I think in general, this series, G2 showed a greater patience and respect for what Jankos wanted to do within the game, which is, a lot of progress. That is the story of G2. A lot of progress from the group stage up until this best of 5. I do believe that Genji underperformed, but I also think G2 showed a lot of good things that meant that they've improved. In a lot of cases, we see a lot of sloppiness from G2, even in the games where the enemy trolls, usually they are very sloppy and they mess around. But these games weren't so sloppy. I felt like G2, were in decent control. I think game 1 could have been a lot better. That was a bit sloppy. But G2's progress is very evident. I think Caps really, really unleashed. Jin gets locked in, Ash, Leona. What would I want to pick here instead? Well, I think even yourself, you can consider the Tahm Kench. The reason I'm considering the Tahm Kench here is because I want to pick Ezreal. You go Ezreal, Tahm, and Sylas doesn't have additional good ultimates to take. Because you're picking Ash, Leona into Sylas as well. That is the big tragedy here. And if you watch this game, you watch some of the highlights, Sylas was having a field day with these ultimates. The Leona AP scaling was beautiful. The Ashar was also snapping at the Nidalee in half. And there was a tragedy that happened in this game where Nidalee bought Mikael's against the enemy team, which is an absolute joke of an item to buy. First of all, Mikael's on Nidalee is very questionable. If it's giving you giga value, then okay, go for it. But you're getting Mikael's for what? Lilia sleep? You're gonna Mikael's your whole team if she's gonna sleep a couple of people? You're gonna Mikael's the Asher the Sylas is gonna steal? I don't know, Kevin. I don't like it. Just buy Mercury's and move on. You know, Mercury's is enough. And if you want additional magic resistance, you just go Athene's. As in Mikael's was a tragedy. And I think Klid's play and BDD's play in general in this best of 5 was very, very underwhelming. But I think it's important to make that distinction that one best of 5, how you play on the day doesn't define your whole season. I still, you know, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, I overrated BDD and so forth. But I think if anyone takes a step back and looks at some of the games that he played throughout the season against some of the greatest mid laners that are still in this tournament, you will know exactly what I mean. And I think the same thing can be said for Klid. He came into the tournament and knew he's going to be quite inconsistent, but I think he had a decent group stage. It was, you know, okay, nothing spectacular, nothing too bad. They got 5-1, you know, it was okay. But in this particular best of 5, definitely he's looked a bit lost. And I think this was the whole nature of Genji, especially after losing that first game. It just looked worse and worse, in my opinion. Anyhow, Tahm Kench gives monster value. Good against Leona, good against Ashe, good against Twisted Fate, good against Nidalee, good against Camille. Very nice, right? And also, Twisted Fate options will be limited. In this game, it all comes down to what Nidalee does and if Nidalee manages to find an advantage. But the issue was that Lilia was just all over the place. There was a situation where there was a top side fight, and Sylas got assists, and it just kind of spun out of control too fast because Sylas just got too strong. Sylas is one of those interesting champions that, you know, he needs to reach certain breakpoints to be either broken, or if he doesn't reach those breakpoints, he's just useless. Like if Sylas gets ahead, he's very oppressive and he's not going to die. As you saw in this game, he just bought Magi's, and Magi's is a very good buy on Sylas. The reason is because the move speed is beautiful, and at the same time, Sylas is very easy to snowball with. The nature of the champion, you have fleet footwork, W, it's going to be very tricky to kill you at any point in time. AP is going to increase how durable you are with Sylas. That's the important part of Sylas. He buys Mercury's this game, he's going to have a good time, and that's what happened. This was a Caps montage. He absolutely smashed G2 in team fights. It looked like old school G2, honestly. Old school G2 in team fights. It was beautiful to watch the way they use Tahm ult and the way they juggle aggro, the way they play around Shen ults. It was just flashbacks from the old G2. I don't think there's any more to, like, you don't need to add anything else to it. Genji had a double kill on Ashe early on. It was a very wonky start, but eventually, you know, there was a 1-for-1 in the top side, and then eventually G2 just ran away with the game due to Caps being slightly ahead, and Jankos with good, very good, strong pathing decisions. I liked what I saw from Jankos, because a lot of junglers in this position will not recognize the rhythm and the flow of the game, and they will just look to farm. But I think he found a lot of opportunities in how fast-paced the game was, so I appreciated that. But I think just still the biggest blunder was just Tahm Kench. This was the most volleyable Tahm Kench you will ever see. Very, very nice. Then of course still 1, 2, 3, these champions should be able to do more damage, but with the slip-ups with Sylas, Twisted Fate using flash and so forth and getting punished for it, it was just too big to handle. Last game, I think this was the best draft we saw from Genji. So they went on to the red side. They banned Ornn, Lilia, Lucian after an then Nidalee gets banned. Graves first pick, I think, is very obvious here. I think here the set ban was a perma ban against Life and of course BDD, because it synergizes well with AP junglers and it's a first ban, so you don't know where it goes. I like the Nidalee ban on 3 because in this case both Renekton and Camilla open, so you're going to find good synergy with it. I think it's completely fine to do. Graves first pick, getting the Kindred in. Here I was surprised that the Sylas came in. Sylas is good against Twisted Fate, but it's less good against Kindred. The Kindred ult is not too exciting for Sylas. Like, it's alright. It's not a premium ult. It's okay. And then they go for the Jhin. So we know now. Perks loves Jhin. Fantastic. Just Sylas against Twisted Fate, it worked. There's no reason to change it up. I guess that's the idea. I thought here, maybe a Damwon would look to pick a Syndra here instead with the Jhin. So they have Syndra into the Kindred, fine matchup into Twisted Fate. It functions very similarly. They can play 2v2 mid and be winning. Kindred hates to play against Syndra. She just can't really do anything. She needs to ult right away if the ult lands, and the stun range just makes Kindred, very useless. Ezreal gets picked. They could have even picked Ezreal themselves, but they went for the Jhin. Jin's completely fine too. Ezreal gets third picked. Ruler just picking his classic champion after Kalista is banned. Ruler's a fantastic Ezreal. He showcased that this game. And then the YamatoCannon fourth pick. I was very surprised by this. Very surprised. I didn't understand it. It just seemed to me as if Ezreal and, looking Ezreal Tam, like, this is a fine combo, but it means that your biggest strength is going to be very docile. Like, you just shot a tranquilizer dart into your bot side, because winning with Tam Ezreal is a tough feat. You can't grow any significant advantages. And it's not like YamatoCannon is going to have some turbo value in this game. So there's a fly hovering around in this room, and it's incredibly frustrating. YamatoCannon gets blind picked, which I was very surprised with, as I mentioned. I thought they would just pick Renekton here, but maybe they're afraid of the potential Cannon pick. But I think if enemy is Twisted Fate, maybe it's tough. Anyhow, Tam gets locked in. Rakan is decent into Tam. I understand that Tam can eat people that are getting comboed, but Rakan can CC more than one, and that's where Tam loses value. So Rakan is a very good scaling pick, one of the few supports that can actually interact well with Ezreal. And then the Renekton 5. So if we think about other champions that they can pick here, they could go Volibear, they could maybe go for the Cannon if they wanted to, but maybe they respected the Jace pick. Renekton as a pick together with Sylas into Kindred. I felt like Kindred, Ezreal, Twisted Fate got a lot of value here. I thought draft-wise that Genji was winning. If we look at the interaction between Ezreal, Kindred, Twisted Fate against a Sylas, Graves, and Renekton, I feel like Genji should be winning. It's going to be tough to kill the Kindred, tough to approach the Ezreal. Like, Ezreal shouldn't realistically be able to die here. The ults aren't super exciting here for Sylas either. He has that isolated ultimate against Twisted Fate. He has an Ezreal ultimate. Volibear ult could be fine sometimes, but all in all, it isn't like super exciting. It isn't Ashe and Leona the same way we saw the previous game. Trying to remember exactly what happened in this game, but it was very, very brawl heavy, and G2 actually managed to gain a significant lead. I think this game was decided because G2 had a lead. They managed to win skirmishes. They had a lead on top side. There was a situation on bottom side where a gank happened, and then finally YamatoCannon died off of a Jhin flash. He had a BF sword advantage with the boost of swiftness, and then Ezreal Tam didn't have prio, and then Sylas with Graves had prio on the 2v2 mid. G2 were just controlling the game very, very well. There was some comeback moments that happened due to Volibear honestly just running down Perks. I remember there was a specific fight where Perks made a mistake, and Genji capitalized on it, which was pretty good. This was a very back and forth game, but I felt like the game really got decided on the Soul Drake. There was a crazy situation where Kindred couldn't go for the smite. I don't know how to describe this with words, but all in all, it ended with Graves just smiting it, and then the Soul Drake was infernal, which makes it very difficult to come back in the game. Ezreal had a good performance. I think draft-wise they were better, but I think G2 just macro-wise and being able to refocus within the game and finding the right targets and team fights with champions that maybe it's a bit difficult to do so. I think that was the most impressive. Once again, Caps' Silas performance was absolutely nuts. Some of the things he did with mediocre rules was still amazing to watch. I think Genji lost their senses today. I don't think that they played up to their own potential, which was disappointing. I think draft-wise they're also all over the place, and it begins for me. The speculation is just Coach Edgar. Genji lost Coach Edgar this year, and Coach Edgar, for those who don't know, he was together with Samsung all the way with Genji up until this year. He was with them since 2013, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was late 2013. And this is many years. And he helped Samsung get 2 World Championships. And in best of fives this year, Genji didn't look super impressive. There was the best of 5 against DRX that stands out. Maybe they played the best of 5 at MSC that I don't remember. Maybe. I've forgotten it. I don't know if they qualified to playoffs there. Maybe they did. Did Genji get stomped by Top Esports? I think that might be the case. I'm just gonna double check, guys, okay? Genji versus Top Esports. Yeah, they did. Genji versus Top Esports, and this was easy for Top Esports. Top Esports was very strong already then. They ramped up after losing the spring finals. They ramped up big time. They got angry. Anyhow, Genji's track record was 1-3 in best of fives, and the one they won was versus a T1 that was scrambling. T1 was in trouble. Right? They didn't know how to draft, and T1 was all over the place. They had their own issues. So that was the biggest difference maker for me, making the prediction that G2 will win. Looking at this factor and how Genji perform in best of fives, and in contrast, look at how G2 perform in best of fives, where everything's on the line. Where everything's on the line, they've smurfed. They beat Mad after losing to them. They beat Origin. Then they beat Fnatic 3-0. Same thing. Lose against Fnatic in best of 5, and then whoosh, destruction. They waited for for Rogue, which went to 5 games. That was impressive from Rogue, which built a lot of hype for me when it came to Rogue. And then another 3-0 for G2. When push comes to shove, G2 have always delivered. Even though Perks and Jankos didn't have the craziest performance in group stage, I think at this point, putting your money on players like Perks and Jankos to show up when it matters is a very easy decision. These players have been at the top of the region as long as I remember. This is Jankos' 4th semi-final out of 5 World Championships. I don't think anyone else has that. The 3 last ones, looking at Jankos, G2, G2, G2. Same thing with Perks, right? Semi-finals 3 times in a row, which is absolutely nuts. And then, of course, 2019, the finals. Jankos and Perks underperforming is not something that should worry you. And now what comes next, of course, is the semi-finals. And my first inkling, I'm not going to say that this is my prediction. This is my first inkling. I'm going to give you guys a little tease because we have a lot of time to think about this. There's no rush, right? There's no rush at all. Suning versus Top Esports. Just naturally have to lean towards Top Esports. But I've been saying it the entire time. Suning is a dark fucking horse, man. They have players that have so high potential. In Bin, Huan Fang, these guys are getting better and better by the day. Every time they play, they look even better. They smack down an underperforming JDG, and that's important to note. It's a great achievement. But it's important to note that form on the day and read on the meta is super important. But I think looking at all of the semi-finalists that we have, I think they have a very, very good read on the meta, all of them. I think this is a very, very stacked semi-final. Of course, here I'm leaning top esports. We saw one best of 5 against them, even though that won't be the same indication of this one. I do believe that top esports have shown enough form and grit in best of 5s that they are ready to take on Suning and not falter the same way JTG did. I think coming out of wars like top esports did and coming out at the end of that builds a lot of confidence for you to be able to deal with anything. I was watching the mic check, which was very wonderful to listen to, not listen to because I don't understand, but to read the subtitles, I guess. And top esports is a very mentally strong team. They've been through fucking hell and back this year alone as a team. And they've shown a lot of growth. A lot of fucking growth. Which is impressive. Same thing for Suning. Suning, a lot of growth too. Story of growth for both of these guys. Suning, they ramped up in summer. And then they won a couple of best of 5s in a beautiful fashion. They got hyped up. Group stage, it looked like monsters. And against JGD, it looked like monsters too. There is room for upset here. I don't think it's completely one-sided, but I think top esports is definitely favored, and that is going to be, you know, the side I'm leaning towards. The question is always, you know, Karsa had some city games. I don't think he is the type of jungle that really like presses the advantage the same way SOFM does. I think Karsa is good at stabilizing. I think Karsa is very similar to Jankos. Yes, Jankos and Karsa are very classic players in terms of how they jungle. Very, very similar jungle approach. Why I think SOFM, like Canyon is like in between SOFM and Jankos and Karsa. And I think SOFM is full on, you know, just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's just making moves on you, taking your golems when you're not looking, taking waves, making sure that, you know, everything he does is all about saving time. This man is like playing... It's like speed running, you know. Have you guys seen like these Dark Souls speed runs and they're like rolling past every monster and they have like some sick tricks to kill bosses and they're like this is SOFM's jungle pathing. Jungle pathing, the decisions he makes on the map is just a Dark Souls speed run, yeah, or a cup boy or whatever the game is called. Some people are gonna hate me for this. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the game. Cup Boy? Is it Cup Boy? I need to Google it. It's driving me crazy. Cup game. Cup game? Cup game? No. The results are ridiculous. Look at the results, man. This is just... regards to cups. Cup game on PC. On Switch? It looks like a Switch game, no? Cup game. Cuphead. Cuphead. Okay. Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry. That is terrible. G2 and Damwon, first inclination is Damwon is favored. But it just comes down to how much can G2 grow within the span of a week again. Semifinals are going to be played on next week. Today is Sunday as we're recording this. How much can G2 grow? Because I think if they played as they played against Genji, you know, it's hard to judge because Genji kind of, you know, fell over and, you know, made it a bit easier than it should have been for G2. But G2 still showed a lot of improvement. But I think still there's a long way to go. We saw a lot of Jhin progress. I think G2's bot lane is very similar to Damwon's bot lane in the way they approach the game, you know? Smart players that can move around the map and know what they need to impact. And it will just come down to the top side. I think... the last time we saw this matchup between Showmaker and Caps, Showmaker was like Chovy. Very, very good laner, but very bad synergy with the rest of his team. Because the approach of Damwon last year was just straight up, you know, isolate the solo lanes, pick Klepto, get ahead even with Klepto, and then just make bot lane survive and hope that Nuclear can pick Kai'Sa. So that was their plan. And that's not a solid plan at all. This time of year, Damwon is very, very versatile. There's a lot of shared champion pool here between Damwon and G2. If you think about the Pantheon, you think about the Camille, you think about the Renekton, you think about the Nidalees, you think about, the Twisted Fates. The key thing is, the big advantage that Damwon has is that they've been playing this for the entire summer. G2 picked this up rather late. That is a massive advantage for Damwon. This meta is something that was very common in the LCK for a very long time, while LEC wasn't playing this. And I think this is what is going to make it tricky. There's going to be a fucked up fun semifinals. That's all I know. I'm thinking about the players pound for pound. Caps versus Showmaker, Nuguri versus Wunder, Jankos versus Canyon. I think the biggest disparity, and still on paper from what we've seen so far, is how Damwon used their jungler, how Canyon plays together with this team, in contrast to how G2 used their jungler and Jankos plays with his team. Because Klid honestly played not so good today. He didn't have a good day at all. And Jankos looked good, but it's not big enough of a sample size for me to be like, yeah, he is going to match Canyon. But we mentioned the experience of these players. Coming into this best of 5, we're heading into space where G2 has been before. And this is not space where Damwon has been before. They've gotten out to quarterfinals, and all of their players are treading on new territory. And this is important because in the past, Damwon was considered a scrim team. And a big part of their burst in terms of performance, was during summer, when the crowd was removed from the equation, and then playing, the finals from home and playing without the crowd and so forth. Maybe, just maybe, this is pure speculation. Don't run away with it. Just pure speculation. Just to add, some extra thoughts into the mix is that, maybe Damwon, they have some pressure, extra pressure here that can become a potential variable. But we are heading into a maybe territory, and we don't want to go too far in it. I think Damwon, as I mentioned, biggest edge that they've been playing this meta for a very long time. But so for now, I'm leaning Damwon, but I think both semifinals, I think, can go both ways. I don't think it's really easy to predict this. So I reserve the right to take some time to think about this more. But in this moment, I'm feeling the Damwon Top Esports Finals. We have some time. We have a week until it starts. Hopefully, I'm going to be on the analyst desk. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, and I think that's a good point to end the video. We might have some meta discussion maybe and some other content in between. We're going to continue with Clash now with the gang. We'll see if Medic is going to play or if Drake is going to play. I'm not sure who. But Clash should be starting soon, and I should probably check if my food has arrived, and I should talk with Liferando support. Sorry, this video was a bit shorter than usual, but I think it's good to make a little bit of a shorter video on Sunday. I wanted to thank all of you for the support. The AMA video is going to be out tomorrow, actually. So, not tomorrow, but I'm going to, what's it called? YamatoCannon, as you can see here, the little box here. You can ask your questions. Oh, this is looking quite horrible. This is not good production value. Anyhow, you can ask your questions here if you want to be a part of it. Jump into it as you can, and I'll answer some of your questions. Exciting. Yay. YamatoCannon subreddit. As I mentioned before, you can find it on Spotify, blah, 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 blah. Let's play some Clash. If you sneeze during this video, bless you and bless your face. I'm sure, I'm trying to think if there's any questions that I missed. Let's see if chat has any questions. Any questions, my friends? Questions. Caitlyn got nerfed. Caitlyn got nerfed, and she is a bit of a liability. The fact that she doesn't bring that much utility to the table, it's rough. Please explain why LCK has slower playstyle in general compared to LPL. Well, LEC has a slower playstyle compared to the LPL. I think LCK, to say that they have a slower playstyle is unfair. I think Genji is the most LCK team that we have at the tournament. And, you know, all in all, I think Genji embodies that more than the other two teams. DRX is rather fast and very, very early game centric. I think Damwon is also very, very fast. And I think this notion that LCK is slow is kind of outdated. I don't think we should separate the teams from the region, because Damwon is not, shouldn't be in the same conversation as Genji and DRX. Damwon is completely different. G2 is completely different. It's like the region has very little relevance, in my opinion, at this stage in the tournament. What poker picks could G2 pull out against Damwon? Well, the Gragas into Pantheon, I think that's exciting. Our team is realizing just how good Jin is. Why do we not see Jin pop off onto every game in the quarterfinals? I think now as Ornn is permabanned, I think we're seeing more Jin. I think that's the biggest problem for Jin. I think Jin, also we have some great Jin players. I think Jin's skill definitely varies, and there is significant skill expression on some of the AD carries that are currently meta. Will it take a Western Worlds victory for Western players to be held up to the same regard as Eastern players? The thing is, teams win World Championships, not individual players. In my top list, I put Caps, I believe, I don't know, maybe third? I don't recall. I put him top 5 at least. I put Wunder as my second best top laner after Zoom. And I put Wunder and, of course, Caps in my top 20, right? But looking at, for example, Hylissang, like Reckless, I think maybe had 20th or 21st, something like that. Hylissang and Mickey didn't have great performances this summer. That's the thing. They didn't have a great performance. Same thing for Jankos. I think the question for a lot of the junglers coming into the tournament was that they were so behind on the meta that is currently played at the World Championship. That was the biggest worry. No Nidalee play at all. Very little Lilia play. Lilia looked disastrous. Ashe play looked very weak. Perks did it decent. Reckless did it decent. But generally, LEC looked like a region that was behind. The key thing about Korean and LPL players individually is there are players that are mechanically so insane to really push your individual level too. I think if you had a Western team, 5 players playing the LPL, imagine G2 was playing in the LPL. How fucking good would they be? Just practicing with LPL teams, preparing against LPL teams. This would have been insane, right? And that's something that we need to consider. The individual players that, for example, the players in North America get to play against doesn't raise the ceiling as well. And that's something important to highlight. If you look at Fnatic, I think they have players individually that can match up. You know, you have Selfmade, you have Hylissang, Reckless. I think these 3 for sure, they have the caliber to be on teams that could potentially win a World Championship. There's much more to it than that. We've had, for example, Doinby. Individually, he's not that great. But his mid 2v2 and mid 3v3 was by far the best. By far the best. And these are qualities that I think a lot of mid laners have begun to respect more. If you look at the development of Showmaker and Caps as well, in terms of how they play and interact with the rest of the map, has been enormous. And this is something that it is a skill that should be appreciated more. Is AP carry in bot lane still a thing? The issue with AP carry bot lane is the fact that magic resistance just becomes too valuable. A lot of the supports actually do magic damage. Right? They do magic damage. So magic resistance, Mercury's becomes too valuable. Mercury's is unbelievably broken. I love buying Mercury's. I hate playing against Mercury's. Why is Mercury OP? Is because there's magic resistance and tenacity on the same item. The problem is Mercury finds value against AD champions, right? It finds value against AD champions because tenacity is useful. Even Pantheon, but think about Pantheon support, right? Pantheon support, okay, but Mercury finds value there too, right? Sure, Pantheon is a champion that has physical damage. Set is a champion that has physical damage. These are the champions like Pyke, Set, Senna, and any AD supports are something that you would synergize together with AP champions. But now think of the AP champion pool. Victor has been nerfed. And maybe you could play Vel'Koz. Vel'Koz could be an option. But where do you find more AD? Do you find there's AD mid laners? Where are they? You know, there's not many of them. There's Lucian, he gets permabanned, so he doesn't count. There's Set, not a lot of teams play it. And then you have a wonky composition in the first place. You have Set mid, Syndra. Like how are you gonna find any DPS? Right? There's too many issues. Too many issues that you need to solve. You anchor yourself in the draft. It kind of hurts. Tristana is a beautiful one. Like I've been talking about Tristana for a long time on this channel, right? I think Tristana, after Jizuki told me, I went and tried it. Stormrazor, Static Shiv is a very good one. I love Tristana. I think Jace mid is kind of, it's okay if you play against Galio, but I think Jace mid is kind of, Tristana mid gets my thumbs up. Thumbs up. Boom. But also, there's like a lot of long-range AD carries being played on bottom. I think like against Kalista, maybe you can play it. But Syndra got nerfed to the ground, and Syndra was OP. Caps is not Caps. Cassiopeia is nerfed. There's plenty of champions that were good in bot that got nerfed. If anything, maybe a Heimerdinger, but it's like, I don't know. Maybe you could play Heimerdinger Pantheon. Maybe that's good bot. I don't know. Just fucking Perks channeling his inner Yarnan. And it says Draven mid. Actually, Attila played Draven mid. We played Talia bot. We played Talia Pantheon bot with Giants. Not Giants, I mean with Vitality. And we did play Draven mid. Draven mid, matchup-wise, is a monster, but it's very prone to ganks. Like we blind picked Talia, baited the Galio pick, and then we put Draven mid and then Talia bot. I didn't coach Giants, I coached Vitality. I didn't coach Giants. Okay, final questions, guys, before we wrap it up. Rengar, Swain bot lanes. Okay, we're going into the wrong area. Ezreal mid is too weak. Doesn't do anything really. Varus, same thing. Varus got nerfed to the ground. Why do you think Fnatic lost 3 games in a row? Because Top Esports was the better team. They ran out of fume, which is normal. It's like exhaustion is a real thing, and also depth in draft is a real thing. There was no more Orianna on the table. They recognized that they can't blind pick Ornn, and Top Esports recognized how they were losing those games. They had a pushing bot with Ezreal Karma, and they put a lot of effort in to make sure that they didn't die. They gave up their full bot tower at some point, and that's cool. Why isn't Rengar played? He scales really well and is AD because he can't play mid. That's the problem. Mid. We need mid. Corki's magic damage, guys. Who can they scrim now if finals are close? Well, that's the danger for G2. If they manage to get to the final, who the fuck do they scrim? Top Esports is gonna have a lot of buddies aligned in the region to scrim them, but I don't know what's gonna happen with G2. Maybe Damwon is gonna be like, we fell on our sword and we lost against you. We will grant you our blessing and scrim with you and help you win the finals. I don't know. That would be sick. That would be like an anime story, But of course, they have a beast to beat in the first place. G2 1-year plan works perfectly. Now Noka, they're warmed up already. We have to see how it ends. If they lose to Damwon, has the 1-year plan worked out? It's so tricky. How I don't blame them at all, because how could you prepare this 1-year plan? How could you possibly prepare a 1-year plan? It's like you make a 1-year plan and then, you know what? 1-year plan, COVID. No, man. You're getting banned, man. Don't spam in my chat, man. That's the only reason you will ever get banned in my chat. You can write whatever you want, almost, unless it's not like racist or inflammatory. But just don't spam your message over and over again. It's just very disappointing and rude to everyone else. Fiora, the reason she's not picked so often, the issue with this champion is that she's not so strong early. Like, she can win some matchups and so forth, but the conditions that you need to achieve in order to win with Fiora are too tough. It's easier to do that with Camille because she has some synergies, and sometimes you're forced into team fights because of the state of the game. And Fiora, the matchups where people say, wow, this is a counter, pick Fiora into Camille. You know, it's not that big of a counter. It's skill matchups. What happened to Yasuo? The man got nerfed to the ground. Okay, when people begin to ask me what do you think about Tryndamere top, I think it's a good place to call it a day on this video. We're going to continue with Clash. Let me check my food. Thank you so much for watching, you people on YouTube. Clash is going to start in a very short time. All the best to all of you. Bless you and bless your face for the second time in this video. I'm very excited to... I got this box, okay? I got this box of Yugi cards, and my concierge decided to write 601 on it. I don't know why. And it really bothers me. So it's really true. And boom. Look at this booster pack. Legendary Duelist, Rage of Ra, first edition. 1 rare card in every pack. 36 packs per box. 5 cards per pack. Woo! That is many cards, my friends. We're going to open this one day. I'm very excited because there's some crazy good cards in here. Very low chance. Maybe we can get the 10,000 Dragon. 10,000 Dragon is really, really expensive. And maybe we could get the Ghost Rare Ra. Yeah, Ghost Rare Gold card. Okay. Bless you and bless your face. You should try Magic the Gathering instead. Much more complex and fun, in my opinion. The thing is, I'm collecting the cards of Yu-Gi-Oh! If I would play a card game, I would play Magic the Gathering. I would play Magic the Gathering, you know. Don't worry. MTG Arena, I will play it. I think it's the best card game out there. Don't worry.